Okay. German immigrants who took the journey across the Atlantic and changed the future of the colonies and the United States.
Okay, the influence is really big. Oh, I love that, my friends. I really do.
Today,
because I think German people are great people, and German with Americans, perfect people. And with a mix of Portuguese, of course. Why did so many Germans immigrate to the United States? That's a great question. But before I go into that, can I ask you for one thing? If you can leave a like, thank you so much, my friend. This is the best way to show support. If you can subscribe, well, in that case, forget about it. You make my day. Have that in consideration. Now, link for the original video in my description. You guys end up recommending this one a lot. Let's play it.
According to the United States Census Bureau, the largest ethnic group in the United States of America is German. In 2019...
German? Okay, don't get me wrong. I was aware that Germany had a huge influence in America. But if I had to guess the number one, I would say maybe English people, Irish people. Okay, this is fascinating. Oh, wow. By the way, anyone watching me right now have German ancestry? If so, leave me a comment. I would love to know you.
Whopping 43 million Americans describe themselves as being of full or partial German ancestry, with Pennsylvania alone accounting for 3.5 million.
3.5?
There is no doubt that at some point in time, there were a lot of...
Okay, I have to pause it right away again. Those numbers are crazy. So there is actually a very good chance that people watching me right now, yeah, André, my grandpa was from Germany. There is a chance, right? Okay.
Of German immigrants crossing the Atlantic to reach America. But what exactly was the reason? What made many Germans decide to leave all they'd ever known and owned behind to start a new life in the United States of America?
I have no idea.
The first notable wave of German settlers in the American colonies came near the end of the 17th century when William Penn, the founder of Pennsylvania, invited religious outcasts from Germany to come and settle in his colony. Many, facing religious persecution back home, eagerly accepted the invitation. For the following decades, German immigration to the colony would steadily increase. For the most part, these settlers were emigrating from the more southwestern regions of Germany, such as Baden, Württemberg, Palatinate, and the Rhineland. But they would not be the only Germans to make their way to Pennsylvania. By midway through the 1700s, these settlers had founded multiple cities, such as Germantown, Skippack, and Conestoga. Upwards of 65,000 Germans had only recently made their way to the welcoming colony by the 1770s.
Okay, 65,000 is a crazy number, right? Oh, Pennsylvania have a huge influence by Germans. Okay. Look, I was not aware, but this is so interesting. Okay.
Unfortunately, the influx of German immigrants would drastically decrease as the colonies inched closer and closer to the Revolutionary War. Numerous of the tens of thousands of settlers had left Germany not just for religious freedom, but also to flee from the effects of the 30 Years' War and subsequent conflicts that plagued Germany. Seeing such a large-scale war then break out in the New World, the dream of a new, safe, and promising home was shattered for many. For those who had already arrived in the colonies, though, life was not horrible. Though challenging, it seems that success in the New World was a true possibility for the hard-working immigrants. According to the Historical Society of Pennsylvania, the typical German immigrant was a poor farmer or artisan who arrived around 1750 with a wife and 2 children. They were most likely in debt for the passage across the Atlantic, but had family or friends already settled in America. They were affiliated with the Lutheran or Reformed Church, but only loosely committed to an organized religion. Records indicate that they became prosperous members of the community. However, many were too poor to...
Okay, wow. Let me say one thing. From what I know about Pennsylvania, one of the most beautiful states in America. I think is a beautiful one. By the way, anyone with German ancestry watching me in Pennsylvania, that would be amazing. If there is someone, that would be amazing. But German people, you have to admire them. Apart from one guy, but that guy was not even German. But okay, but you have to admire them because if you think about it, at the end of the First War and the Second World War, Germany was destroyed, and right now, for example, I believe it's probably the most important country in Europe. You know, you kind of have to admire that they are always able to make a comeback, if that makes sense. And probably that also had some influence in America, because America is also like that, I have a feeling. Okay, actually, let's run it a bit back. Oh, I'm loving this video. I'm loving this video.
But only loosely committed to an organized religion. Records indicate that they became prosperous members of the community. However, many were too poor to pay the transatlantic passage, so as many as 1/2 to 2/3 of German immigrants came to Pennsylvania as indentured servants or redemptioners, as Germans called them. These redemptioners were essentially contracted servants for generally between 2 to 7 years, who would be forced to work for a particular employer to make up for the debts they owed and had incurred from their trip to America.
Makes sense.
And by the time the German influx had slowed, there were already, according to some historians, nearly 75,000 Germans living in Pennsylvania, and many others had immigrated to the rest of the colonies or would come later on. There had been an almost constant trickle of Germans entering the New World ever since the founding of Jamestown, and even some of the German Hessian soldiers that had been employed by the British during the American Revolution had decided to stay in the United States at the end of the war. During the early 1800s, more Germans had begun to make their way to America, though not in as large of waves due to famine back home. Others would come a few decades later due to the political strife in Germany, and during the 1850s, roughly 1 million Germans arrived in the United States, making the...
And you know what I love about America? Is that America is the land of opportunity, right? The land of freedom. And you guys end up receiving those people. Oh, that's beautiful by America.
Total number of German-born Americans by the 1860s, around 1.3 million. In the 1870s, over 100,000 Germans from Russia found their way to America after the Tsarist government stripped away privileges that had been granted to German farmers in Russia hundreds of years prior. The next decade would outshine all the rest, though, as around 1.5 million Germans came to the US just in the 1880s alone. This would be the peak, though, as the number of German-born Americans dropped from 2.9 million to 2.3 million between 1890 and 1910. Immigration had gone down drastically, and in 1920, the number had fallen even further, now sitting at 1.7 million. And even with the side effects of displacement caused by World War II, Americans born in Germany still only added up to 1.2 million after the start of the conflict. Germans would continue to immigrate over the following decades, as they still do today, but the number of them coming to America has nevertheless dropped remarkably. In 1990, only 58 million Americans claimed to be German or partially German, even though others could be linked to German ancestors. But still, even if the number of Germans coming into America had already reached its high point, they have undoubtedly had a huge impact on the country. And it does seem that German remains the most dominant ethnic group in the country. The reasons for their migration are multiple. One reason that is often overlooked, though didn't account for the first wave of immigrants, was the stories told by Germans who had already made their new lives in America with great success. From Gottfried Duden's book to simple letter correspondence between German immigrants and those they knew back home, people in Germany began to hear about the opportunities and freedoms that the colonies and later United States had to offer. Simple word of mouth is often all it takes, but still,
especially at the time,
there were many other factors that led to Germans crossing the ocean. For many, the feudal system back home left them yearning for more independence, as did other restrictions that have been placed on some, such as limits on marriages due to a fear of overpopulation and a worsening economy. But the economy was already bad.
Okay, I was not aware of this again.
Bad enough for numerous people. High taxes were a constant burden, and making a respectable living just seemed more likely in the New World, with news of land being given to new settlers and industrialization later opening the door for more jobs outside of the typical farming. Furthermore, some communities in the German states were eager to get rid of the lower class anyway, and would even offer to cover the costs of the journey to America if the immigrants promised to never return home.
You know what, my friends, you can say whatever you want about America, but you have to admit, this country, and what this country representing to a lot of people in the past is something beautiful. This is a new land, this is a new opportunity, and together we can do it. And I really like America. You guys are aware of this. It's no, not news to you, my friends. But again, maybe not the perfect country. I'm aware of that. But this is a great one.
German men left illegally due to military service requirements, while more fled famine and frequent wars. And of course, as demonstrated by many of the original immigrants to the New World, religious freedom was often an important motivator. At the time, many were essentially told...
This is a dumb question, but freedom of religion is on the Constitution? Probably, I would assume, right?
What to believe in, Catholicism or Protestantism, for example, by each monarch. For those with strong alternative beliefs who were unwilling to comply, fleeing the country became a way for them to practice their faith in peace. Not only did the American colonies have freedom of religion, but as stated earlier, the founder of Pennsylvania himself had even invited these religious outcasts to settle in his colony.
I love that.
Of course, many reasons exist as to why people of any country immigrate to another, and this is far from an exhaustive list, though it is some of the main explanations that have been discovered. Without German immigrants, for example, Americans may not share the tradition of decorated Christmas trees, and the Brooklyn Bridge wouldn't have been built without a German immigrant engineer, business owners, military generals, scientists. There are dozens upon dozens of names of German immigrants who took the journey across the Atlantic and changed the future of the colonies and the United States.
Okay, the influence is really, really big. Oh, I love that, my friends. I really do.
Today,
because I think German people are great people, and German with Americans, perfect people. And with a mix of Portuguese, of course. My friend, quick pause on this one. First of all, hope you are enjoying the video. If that's the case, do not forget to leave a like and subscribe. But let me share with you one thing. I have a Patreon community where I put content almost every day, a lot of early access videos. So if you want to get them, go to my Patreon, link on my description. And this is of course a good way to support the channel. That said, let's continue with this one, and I hope you have fun.
Germans still immigrate to the US on occasion. But more significantly is the lasting effects of those who had already come. 6 states are believed to have over 30% of their total populations be made up by full or partial German Americans.
It's amazing.
Another 7 have an at least 20% ethnic German population, and of all 50 states, not a single one has a German population that makes up less than 4.5% of the state's entire population.
My friends, I know I post too much, I ask a lot of stuff, but please, if you have any type of German ancestry, you have to leave me a comment. Even if you are the type of guy that I don't even comment, André. But please leave me a comment, because and tell me where that ancestry comes from. Just a easy comment and your state. I would love also to know your state. I read the comments, my friends, so it would mean the world to me.
Possibly one of the most impressive parts about this is that most immigrants from the German states have assimilated almost, if not entirely, into German American culture and identity, meaning that there really hasn't been an intentional preservation of German identity in America, though some German heritage societies and communities exist. For the most part, it's all thanks to the millions of people who braved the waters to start a new life in the United States that have made so much of America's roots German.
Clap, clap. Great video. And I mean, my love for America is well described at this point, right? I really enjoyed this one. I'm not sure if you guys enjoy this type of videos. They are a bit more about, history, but leave a like if you enjoy this type of stuff, because I have a great time. And it means a lot that you guys end up watching until the end.